Hello and welcome to this video from Syneto Engineering about SynetoOS 4. My name is Flavius Steff and I will walk you through the most exciting new features of this release. SynetoOS 4.0 is the world's first operating system specifically designed for hyperconvergence and disaster recovery in small and medium business environments. It features virtual machine management, file sharing, and built-in backup and restore functionality. Among the top needs our clients reveal to us are increased efficiency when performing IT operations and ease of use of the management interfaces. With SynetoOS 4, we're pioneering the concept of one-click everything. Most of our actions really take a single click. Deploying a new data store, protecting a VM, or understanding system health becomes a simple, straightforward task. The amount of work you can do in just minutes with SynetoOS 4 is unbelievable. Just give me a few moments and I will demonstrate it. This video is divided in 3 sections. A quick walkthrough of all the web interface screens, an example of protecting and recovering data from an SMB Share, and a demo of restoring a VM in case of a disaster. Here's a diagram of the lab setup we'll be using. On the left-hand side, you can see the primary machine that has a built-in VMware ESXi hypervisor, and it runs 3 VMs, the management VM, the Syneto operating system, and 2 Windows, a server and a Windows 10 client. On the right-hand side, you can see the secondary or DR machine that has also a built-in hypervisor and SynetoOS, the management VM. The 2 machines have a defined replication schedule that takes all the VMs from the primary machine to the secondary machine every 10 minutes. Let's take a look at the SynetoOS user interface. This is the login screen of my primary hyper machine. After we enter the credentials, we will be greeted by the dashboard, which features 7 widgets that summarize the status of a running hyper machine. At a glance, we can understand how our compute, storage, and backup services operate and get details such as the overall health of our system, what the hypervisor we're running on is, or how many of the VMs and shares are protected or not by a snapshot schedule. The actions you can do in the user interface of SynetoOS 4 are divided in 3. The main menu on the left side of the screen contains the pages which allow us to perform the primary tasks, managing VMs, data stores, NAS shares and SAN volumes, protecting them, and getting detailed analytics via tens of metrics. A secondary menu can be accessed in the top right corner of the screen. We have grouped here the less frequently used tasks, like configuring networking, reviewing disks and disk pool configuration and operation, or changing the date and time. As a quick example, let's take the network interfaces screen. Here's just one quick example of one-click management. Disabling an interface. Obviously I get the warning, but that's it. Interface VMEXNet 3 is down. Now, before moving on, let's re-enable it back. And my interface is back. The third menu is reserved for notifications. It's this one on the top over here, and you can see there are 3 buttons for software updates, system alerts, and technical support. We can see that this machine has 1 alert, so let's check it out. In order to allow one-click status, we have grouped all the different health views of a hyper machine in one screen. The status is checked both at the physical level via sensor readings and disk monitoring, but also at the OS level via, for instance, VM health and disk pool checks. 1 alert has been raised for demo purposes under system errors. Normally I would investigate it, but for now let's just mark it as repaired. 1 click. We can see that the alerts counter is now reset back to 0 and the red color is gone. Everything seems to work just fine. Let us now return to the primary menu, where HYPERsystem administrators are spending the majority of their time. Under virtual machines, we will see two Windows VMs, the ones that I mentioned on the lab setup page, the Windows Server and the Windows 10 client. After selecting a VM, we can see various details about it, like the storage usage, the memory usage. We can see that this machine is quite heavily loaded, or maybe the guest operating system. The table layout is very helpful when trying to compare the resource usage of the different VMs to understand which are eating the most of our host resources. We can sort by CPU, by memory usage, by space usage. And for larger installations, there is a very helpful inline search box to easily pinpoint a certain VM. Moving to the data stores screen, we find a couple of data stores that I've already provisioned. HYPERVDS stores the two Windows machines, and we can get detailed information about the amount of storage used by the data store. We can see that it stores 19 gigabytes of data and about 90 megabytes of snapshots. As mentioned, there is a replication schedule for this data store, and it runs every 10 minutes. We can check it out by browsing the snapshots list. As you can see, all the snapshots are listed in a very convenient calendar format, ideal for retrieving data. Finally, using a smart color scheme, the user can intuitively understand what is working well and what isn't. For instance, we can see that the HYPERVDS data store is green because it's properly protected. It has at least one protection schedule, while the images data store is red to indicate to the user that it has no protection defined. One cool feature of SynetoOS is that it can support both the hypermachine and external non-Syneto ES6i hosts. This would get added under the hosts dialog. Currently there is just one host defined, the local one, but let me go ahead and add an external host. So what we need to do is provide the IP or host name and the root password. Now I have added an external host, and from this point on, what I can do is I can mount my existing data stores additionally to this host, or maybe if I want to create a new data store, I can also select it in the list over there. So coming back to the screen and the menu on the left, the shares and protect and replicate we will cover with the second and third portions of our demo. Let's move on to the volumes. So over here we already have a defined volume called WinSRV. We can see again it's highlighted red, it's not protected. And let me show you two more examples of one-click everything. If I want to resize, for instance, this volume, we can see it's 45 gigabytes in space, and I want to make it 48, just one click. Or maybe if I want to change its provisioning from thin to thick, or back from thick to thin, you guessed it, it's just one click. Finally, under Analytics, we can dive deeper into how our machine operates. Each hypermachine gathers billions of data points every day, ranging from the physical level, where we can check out disk IOPS, or as in this case, latency, to moving up the stack to details such as caching efficiency. There are more than 50 different charts that we can look at, and they cover all aspects of the compute and storage aspects of a machine. It's very easy to zoom in and out. Can go to the last 6 hours and compare our data, and we can even isolate specific pieces of information that we want to see by selecting the actual time series. This is it for the bird's eye view of the SynetoOS 4. Let's run through an actual end-to-end usage example. Suppose I wanted to provision an SMB share inside my network. Let's move to the ESXi console of my primary machine. As a reminder, we have 3 running VMs, a Windows server, a Windows client, and the Syneto operating system. The Windows server functions as domain controller and provides Active Directory services. Our network has a user called John Smith. It's the end of the month, and so John must deliver some very important reports. John is logged on to his Windows 10 machine and has asked the Hyper administrator to provide him with a protected folder in which to store his documents. Let's see how to do that. First, we'll go to the Shares menu. To leverage the existing Active Directory database with which SynetoOS can integrate, we will link to it. By default, all machines come joined to a workgroup, so let's switch to an Active Directory installation. After filling in the details and clicking Join, and waiting a few seconds while SynetoOS and Windows Server negotiate their connectivity, I will be joined to AD and to the Windows Server. From this point on, I can leverage the existing Active Directory database. For networks that don't have an Active Directory server installed, such as design studios that work mainly on Mac OS, there is also the option of creating local accounts, local users and groups. But for the purpose of this demo, we won't be covering this feature. After joining the Active Directory, we can create the share. We simply click New SMB Share, and because it will be used for reporting, we call it Reports. One click and the share has been created. Now we move back to the Windows Server and we will access the new share. Initially we will go on the Windows Server and set the rights for that share. So let's access it. The IP is 10.0.0.6 and there's the helpful autocomplete that Windows Server gives us. And let's change the rights so that John can access it. So we go under security, edit the permissions, add some for John, apply, yes, okay. Now John has access rights to this folder. This is John's screen. He can now access the same folder and start creating his important report. Let's call the report something impressive like Report 2017. And John will start writing his very important content. Save and close. In the meantime, the hyperadmin will be adding a protection schedule to the folder. We move back to the hyper machine and under Protect and Replicate, Shares, we can see that the report is not protected. The report share is not protected. Helpfully, the interface highlights it with red. As we can see, the screen uses the same table layout as the provisioning screens, which makes it very easy to search, sort, and filter for the desired item. Now let's protect the reports folder. We will choose a very granular protection scheme with a snapshot being taken every minute, and we will keep 10 snapshots locally. Let's also add a replication for this schedule so that we can see in action the DR features of SynetoOS. As previously mentioned, the DR features apply both at the VM and share level. So we have added the machine called DR as a target for our replication. I have previously defined the DR machine as a replication target under this helpful dialog, you can add up as many replication targets as you want for more complex Syneto installations. So the schedule has been defined. Let's force run it for the first time so that we can actually get some snapshots. You can see the first snapshot has been already taken locally, and in a few seconds the last replication has also successfully finished. Now if we move to the demo machine, the demo DR, you can see initially no shares have been created, but let's reload the page. And voila, our reports folder has been replicated from demo primary, demo Syneto EU. That was the machine which functions as a primary infrastructure. Now let's go back to John's desktop. It's getting late and John does an accidental edit of his file. He saves it, and after working 10 hours straight, it would be a shame to see all that effort go to waste. You double click, oh my god, it's still there. The accident has happened. Luckily, Syneto has a tight integration with Windows VSS, a service that integrates Syneto snapshots and presents them under the Restore Previous Versions contextual menu. So if we go over here under Previous Versions, we see that the snapshot that we initially took, the one that we actually replicated to the DR side, is present in the list of previous versions. And if we open it, we see that our very important content is still there. So very happily, John clicks restore and can restore the file to its previous version. So if we double click it, the very important content is still there. Obviously, a more frequent backup schedule means less data is lost in the case of an accidental deletion. This concludes the second part of our demo. The third part of the demo highlights how absurdly easy it is to restore a VM in case of a disaster. Let's go back to the virtual machines screen on my primary ESXi and review what we have there. So we have the Windows server and John's client machine, and also there is the Syneto operating system. On the DR side, there is just the SynetoOS. Now we will simulate the primary machine going down. In order to do that, let's go onto John's desktop and let us create a text document. Let's say it will contain a very nice message. I'm going to save, close, and then close the VM. Now, if we look at the snapshot schedules of my primary machine, we will see that there is a recurring replication that has been running for the past hour. We have a schedule that runs every 10 minutes and keeps locally 6, then it replicates to the DR unit and it keeps remotely 12 snapshots. There are 6 snapshots, and the protection level for my 2 VMs is app consistent. Let's also force a replication right now. Now suppose the primary machine goes down. If we go on the secondary machine, on the DR machine, under the data stores, we should see the incoming data store with the 2 VMs. And lo and behold, it is here, and it has 0 VMs registered so far. It is just lying dormant, but it does have the 6 snapshots that we need. One special point I'd like to make here is about the core technology we have developed. The world's first VM and DR aware file system. All file systems store the data and its metadata. But SynetoOS added 2 new layers to the mix, specifically designed for our vision of a hyper-converged, DR-protected IT infrastructure. The third layer deployed on SynetoOS facilitates data recovery, because it stores virtual machine metadata, snapshots, and backup information. And the fourth layer, an anti-corruption envelope, makes sure all the data is constantly protected via smart distributed checksums. Going back to my DR machine, let's browse the replicated snapshots. As you can see, I have a bunch of them. Now let's restore John's machine from the snapshot that we have just created a few minutes ago. I'm going to click clone, going to select the Win10 machine and start the cloning process. What this does is, in the background, it pilots an automated set of API requests to ESXi, which, as you can see, creates data stores, clones the virtual machines, etc., etc., and then finally it will register it inside the ESXi hypervisor of the DR machine. This whole process takes roughly 20 to 30 seconds per VM. So now if we go inside the ESXi, we already see my Windows 10 demo machine here, and we can power it on. We will wait for John's machine to boot up, and then hopefully we will see on the desktop the special message that we have sent from the primary side. The boot of this machine also takes 20 to 30 seconds. Just a little longer and we will be able to log in. Just as a quick note, this video is recorded in real time and no time acceleration has been applied. And there it is. There's our message from the past. This concludes the third and final part of the demo. In case you were wondering, the whole segment took less than 5 minutes. This concludes our demo for SynetoOS 4. It is available starting with October 12th this year on HYPERseries 2000, our line of products targeting the S in SMB markets. And it will also be available by the end of 2017 on HYPERseries 3000, the line of products we have designed for medium businesses. If you have any questions following this video, I would be glad to answer them, and you can write to me at the email address on the screen. Thank you for watching.